What's up? So I want to kind of do a little story for you guys because hopefully this will save somebody money if they're having the same problem. So this is a 1982 square body and it has C10 and it has a Cadillac 500 motor in it. Now, one of the really cool things about having a Cadillac 500 is it's a Cadillac 500. One of the really confusing things is you don't know if the parts under here are for the Cadillac 500 or for the C10. Example, I have a cooling fan that I didn't know if it was a square body cooling fan or a cooling fan for a Cadillac. I ended up taking it out because it stopped working randomly. My temperature gauge that I have in the truck, I check honestly often whenever I'm driving this because I don't know if an alert or a light is set up to go off if it got too hot, so I just kind of make it a habit to check. Long story short, it was not turning on when it needed to, and the car or the truck was overheating or about to overheat. These engines run really, really hot, but even if they do run really, really hot, it should have turned on a lot quicker than it did, which it didn't at all. With that being said, the first place that I would check if you are having the same issue is I would get a multimeter out. I would see where you're getting power, where you're not. So the first thing I did was I checked this relay, and I was getting power from the ignition switch, which is right here, and I was also getting power from my battery. However, whenever I had the ignition switch off, whenever I had the battery plugged in, nothing was unhooked, power was not going out. So I was not getting power to the fan, and I was not getting power to the temperature sensor or the switch, which is right here. This, I think they're all rated differently. So you have some that'll turn on the fan at 185 degrees. This one turns it on at about 200 degrees, which is fine because normal operating temperature for these motors is like 210, 220, even maybe 225 on really, really hot days. So with that being said, I knew immediately that it was going to be my relay. I was getting power in, but it was not going out. So I ordered a relay that I got same day. I think I paid 20 bucks for it because I paid $2.99 shipping. I do have Prime, which it would have gotten to me on Wednesday, but I wanted to get it done as soon as I could. Instead of just replacing, looking at it saying, oh, this is old, which this is actually from a Ford Taurus, believe it or not. But instead of looking at it or taking it somewhere and them even saying, hey, this is old, you probably need a new one, I decided to tackle the relay instead of spending $300, $400, $500 on a new fan, which they are freaking pricey. I did not realize they were that expensive. Even these guys from a Ford Taurus, they're like 175 bucks, 200 on eBay. Just got this in yesterday. I came here on my lunch. I live fairly close to my parents and I have this parked out here on their land. So I'm able to work on it at lunch since I work remote. And I ended up literally taking everything apart, finding discrepancies. Like I had some Frankenstein wires. I had my circuit breaker over there that was opposite. They had what should have been hooked onto the battery, hooked onto the auxiliary, and vice versa. So I did everything right. The instructions that come with this kit are a little confusing, but I kind of just dissected what I was reading to make sure that I had it all. And I literally wrote it down: black to thermostat, red short to fan, red long to circuit breaker, and brown to ignition. Because I obviously had a previous relay, I didn't have to do a new wire from the fan to the circuit breaker. I used that old one, and I didn't have to do a new ground, which is right down there. I used those from the old setup. The only thing I had to do was I had to add a little bit of 12 gauge wire, which I guess I could have used the 12 gauge wire that I cut off at the circuit breaker that would have been for the battery, but I just happened to have some 12 gauge wire. So I had to add some right down there because it was just a little too short for my liking. And the fittings were so tight that I had to end up taking out the fan, plugging it in, and then putting the fan back after it was all plugged in and squared away. So needless to say, everything is good. It kicked on, it worked. So I knew it was that $20 problem and not a $200 or $300 problem. So if you're having the same issue, your fan's not kicking on when it should, like I mentioned, the first thing I would do is the multimeter to the relay. See if that's your problem. Make sure you have power going in and power going out. If that's not your issue, I would then start with the coolant temperature sensor. A lot of times, the third thing I would check, or even the second or first, is if you can freely move the blades in the fan while the fan is obviously off. If you have any play and you can spin the blades freely, typically that means your clutch is bad. The way that this Ford Taurus cooling fan was made and designed, it had a motor that was attached to the back of the blades, so the clutch was not detachable. So I could theoretically spin it on my own, and that really didn't mean anything. It didn't mean it was bad, didn't mean it was good. So it was a lot harder to determine what exactly was wrong from the start going that route. So that's it. I appreciate you guys watching again. Just stuff happens with old vehicles. I got this motor completely refreshed, but At the time, this thing was still working, and their instructions were do not really replace anything that would be kind of an easy fix after if it doesn't look like it's donezo or about donezo. So again, this is a 1982 square body with a Cadillac 500 in it. Regardless of what motor you have, I would initially start with the relay sending unit, or the relay, sorry, then the temperature sensor, and then a whole fan if you need one. Just to remind you guys, again, everybody obviously should know, but when you're working with wiring, disconnect the ground. I had it off the whole time while I was putting everything together. And then of course I tested it and it started working. Kicked on at 200 degrees like it should. So I'll end with a little video of me discovering that, because this has been a headache, and it's super fulfilling fixing something on your own and not paying someone else to do it. So I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully this is helpful. If not, then sorry. If it was, give it a like. I'd appreciate it. It does well on the videos. And subscribe. Thanks.